Okay, hi everyone. How are we getting on? This is our last class in this module now. So we've been working on the menu, haven't we? And now we're going to turn our attention to the pause menu. So what's the idea with the pause menu? Well, the idea is that the only thing we need is a sidebar to appear. We don't need the background. So I'll have the side menu in our scene appear on the screen, and I'll still be able to see the scene itself. Okay, so it's a nice thing to have whilst you're already in game, to just pause it and then be able to make some adjustments. Okay, whilst you can still see this everything in the scene. So let's do this together. It's quite simple. Okay, so let's see how it's done. So let's think about this. How am I going to activate this side menu for pausing? Well, I can define it with the key of P, the P key on the keyboard if I want to, and that can show us the screen. And you can also put a key for the instructions to come up too. I think actually I might already have P assigned to do that. If it's in the input in the project settings, we can just make those adjustments. Okay, so let's just check that. So open our project settings. There we go. Let's go down to input, and we can add in an action here. Okay, it doesn't have a scalar variation. It's simply a button. So I'll add it here and call it pause. And I'll give it the P key on the keyboard. Cool. So it's created an event there with the letter P. And now I can add it to the pause menu. So what will the pause menu do? Well, it will add the left-hand menu to the scene. So it's basically this event here that's going to run. And that's why we built them all separately. You're now seeing it, right? So let's do it. Let's put the pause event or action event there. Cool. And I'll also add it here as well to the input. Okay, so I'll add it so that I can input commands via this blueprint. So we get player controller, pull out from there, and then enable input, just as we did in the previous classes. Target is itself, okay? And then I'll connect this to that, and I'll comment on this, call it enable input, just as we've done before. Nice. Okay, so I've added that there. Now I can make my input action actually work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add left menu. Okay, so I'm going to call that function. Perfect. So when I press play, I'll press P and it should run this. Let's check it out. So let's play the game. It's going to load the screen for 8 seconds, remember. So once that's finished, we'll be able to test it. Okay, here we go. So I'm in the scene, navigate, press P, and look at that. It opens. So pressing P gets it visible on the scene. It looks pretty good, doesn't it? Now, I don't have a way to turn it off, do I? So I need to do that. My character's still moving in the scene. We might want to stop the character, the camera shake as well, just so it's steady. Okay, so we can do all that. We can also adjust the resolution. You notice the change here when I change the screen percentage? Okay, and let's see it on low. So it's making these subtle changes for us, but it's all working. So the hardware we put in before is working. And you can see the differences in real time here. Okay, so let's go back now. I'll leave the start button enabled. Let's see what happens if I press that. Okay, so it's going to trigger the loading screen again, isn't it? Now, we don't really need that, do we? Because it shouldn't have to load it again. It should just start. Okay, so, and we can remove the crosshair as well. But let's do this change one thing at a time. Okay, let's start with the, what's it saying here? Okay, so here it's saying the widget crosshair was on screen. Okay, so don't worry about that. So let's think about this. Let's see how we can solve one thing at a time here. Okay, let's start with this. So every time I press the start button, it's going to execute this hierarchy, isn't it? Since we're recycling the menu, and every time I press start, it's going to run the loading screen. So let's change this so that it's not going to happen all the time. In fact, we can just reduce the time to 4 seconds so it's not too high. I'll remove the loading if it appears on screen. So I change it here. The start button won't add loading anymore. So I have to add it over here when I add the menu. There we go. So add loadings there. But wait, if you're adding loading, then the 3 will be added at the same time. In Unreal, there's a hierarchy of widgets. So defining which widget will run over the other is quite important. Okay, so how do we determine this? Well, here in the Add to Viewport node, there's a field called Z order, which would be kind of like the order of layers in Photoshop, right? What's overlaid by another. Okay, so in order of importance and order of hierarchy. So the lower the number, the lower the number, the lower its importance. Okay, so I'll set the background as 1, and the left menu will be set to 2, which means that the left menu is ahead of the background, and the loading menu is 0. So what happens is that it will overlay visually, and it's going to also show up in execution order. Since the background and the left menu took over the screen, it's going to wait, it's going to remove the widget, and then run this one. It's basically what I did, but in another way. So you might have wondered why I didn't do this at the start. Well, that's because we hadn't enabled the pause menu at that stage. Okay, and plus, I didn't really remember it, to be honest. But, because there's a lot of information involved, it's good that we can, just adjust things as we go along to fit what we need. It helps us also with debugging too. So now we've shown you the Z order as well. That's quite important. We've seen what error can happen and how to fix this. Now we need to see if it's working. All right, so let's give it a test. Let's go into, let's play it now. Let's test it. Okay, so start, the loading screen appears, about 4 seconds, is it? There we go. Okay, cool. And if I press P for pause, that comes up. If I press start again, now it doesn't show me the loading screen, okay? Nice. So you can just start again if you want to, all right? But we still have that issue with the crosshair. So we need to remove it, okay? Because it's giving us this error each time. So when I press start, let's go back into here. What it's doing is it tries to add the crosshair, doesn't it? Because I've got it here. Okay, but it's already on screen. So I get this error message. So let's add it here in the pause event instead. Okay, so it doesn't try to re-add what's already there. So to do this, I need to find this reference. I don't think I have it here. So I'll do it with get all actors of class. And I search for BP crosshair. And then, as before, get a copy. Nice. And then promote to variable. And we'll call this BP crosshair ref. Nice. And connect those and give this a comment. And we'll call this get BP crosshair. All right. Okay, cool. So now I just have to drag it here and I have to access the event over there, which is remove crosshair. There we go. Okay, so when I press P on the keyboard for the pause menu, it will include the left menu and remove the crosshair from the screen. So when I try to add it again, it won't receive that error message. Okay, so let's test it out. Compile, save, and play. Let's start. 4 seconds of loading. Cool. And let's do the pause menu. Let's press P. Nice. See that? You see the crosshair's gone now? Nice. So it's working. That's a nice little way around of doing that. So then we press again. Press P again. Okay. So we just need to sort that out, because when we press pause again, it showed up. Did you see that? Let's press start. So we've got the 4-second loading screen. Now screen's as normal. Press P, it disappears. Okay. And then when we press start again, what's happening? Well, let me tell you, sometimes blueprints can be a little bit annoying. Okay. And this is one example. So this is happening because I pressed start and the cursor moved the button to the right, set in a new position. Okay. Let me explain this a bit better. So I pressed it, but it's not going back. Okay. Because it was set that way and it remained like that. You see that? So I guess if you really want to be a perfectionist, we can include this little workaround. Actually, let's do it, because it'd be really helpful for you to not get this annoying issue all the time. Okay, so let's include that workaround here. So when we press it, let's think about this. I'll drag the start button here and set its render state. The set render transform is what we need. Okay, set render transform. There we go. Right. So we've got that, and I'll split it and set it to the original position, which is 0 and 0. Okay. And what we're doing here is set the render transform. Start button initial position is 0 and 0. And when I click it, it will return to its original position. I know it's a small nuisance, but we have to do that sometimes. At least now you've seen how to fix it. Okay, so we see our crosshair, press P, it disappears. Okay, and the start text is where it needs to be. Okay, cool. So if you don't tell the blueprint in Unreal to do things, it won't guess what you want it to do. So sometimes you literally have to like spell it out for it to understand. Okay, and this is another way of fixing issues. So that's why we do these hover and unhover movements. So we understand what we're clicking under, what we're not. That way we're always visually telling Unreal, hey, I'm over here, I want to do this. Okay, these are the little details, but always help us in testing how our game is actually behaving and how it's interacting. Cool. So let's test our resolution again. Let's see that's working. Low. Okay, nice. The instruction is working. Good. Okay, yeah, I like it. And I think the ratio is pretty good. 1920 1080. And yeah, cool. So our instructions working. So the player here can check what to do, what they can control. Nice. And they can exit the game as well with exit. Cool. So that's it, everyone. We completed this journey. It's been a interesting one, isn't it? I hope you've enjoyed it though. But that's how to create a menu like the one we intended to create at the beginning. Now, we deliberately chose a menu that's more complex. So you now have the ability to understand the concepts involved and how you can create your own of this complexity. We also saw some really interesting nodes along the way, didn't we? Such as render transform, because it changes the element's position, doesn't it, in the widget, which is really cool. And if we're using buttons, we saw a way how to use binds, okay, so that we can put more information involved and make them work in more intuitive ways or more unique ways. We also added sounds, we created variables, we created complex conditionals, and now we started going much deeper into the topic of blueprints, didn't we? Because the basics of blueprints are really quite simple, but starting to create complex connections, well, that takes us to another level. Okay, it requires more creativity too. So it's true, when it comes to blueprinting, you don't just need to know how to do things. You also need to have creativity to come up with some variables and different solutions for things to make, the experience, really good. So if we analyze everything we did in the 16 classes, there was tons of stuff, lots of information, all of these widgets, plus the main menu, plus the loading screen, the background. It was a lot of content, wasn't it? All right. So if you made it to this step, to this stage, congratulations. If you're struggling in certain things, don't worry. Go back and check them out. Okay? If you're already an ace when it comes to Blueprint, if you already got it, you're a pro, well, great, fantastic, move on. Keep going, keep progressing in your knowledge, and keep applying your skill sets to various projects. So I hope you've enjoyed how we've set them out as well, these projects, so we can all understand things progressively. And also we've tackled some problems together, problems that you're likely to find during the course of your Blueprint career. And one other thing also, this main menu Blueprint, don't you find that helped us a lot in the way we set it out? Setting it out with the comments, helping us to understand what's doing what, and keeping that organization all throughout the chapters really helpful. We're going to see more interesting blueprints, okay, as we progress during the course, and right up until the end, we'll be tapping into the knowledge we've learned, even in this chapter, okay, or even right at the beginning. We still aren't done with widgets. We'll see some really interesting stuff as we continue, and that will involve some more complex things, but some interesting things, and interesting things that are fundamental for us to bear in mind when it comes to ArcViz interactive experiences. We'll vary the parameters for materials as well. Show you how to click on items and change how they look that are integrated into our scene, and that's really, really cool. Okay, and hopefully, when we get to that stage, it should just be straightforward because you've already taken in all this background, or you've got all this knowledge in the bag, so to speak. Okay. So another thing also that I hope you've appreciated in this class is the ability to be quite artistic with the creation of our menus. So they're not only interactive, but they look good, they look modern as well, and they can make your project more valuable, more appealing to the eye. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed this chapter on creating the menu and all the classes within. I hope it wasn't too tiring, and if you made it to the end, well done. But let's keep going. Let's keep making some incredible blueprints together.